you, Gemma, and hello, everybody. It is a great pleasure for me to be with you. Those of you who are regular attenders of future hospitality summits may have seen me before, and I'm delighted to be back with you. But I'm especially delighted right now to have His Excellency with me. Actually, we've skipped the presentation bit. We're going straight into the Q&A because we thought that would really be the most dynamic way of assessing where UAE is in terms of its tourist performance and where its big ambitions and where it wants to go. You are Minister of Economy and Tourism, so this is absolutely your bag. So, Minister, first of all, tell me about the latest numbers you're seeing in terms of visitor numbers, the performance of the tourism sector. How does it look right now?
First of all, thank you so much for having me again. Very pleased to be in the Future Hospitality Summit, second year in a row. On stage as well to really speak about the tourism and the hospitality aspect, which is a big part of our GDP and our economy. We reached about 12% this year, last year actually, 2023. The year before we were about 9% in GDP compared to the tourism across the whole economy pie. Now, what does that mean? Are we on the right track? Yes, we are. Let's give you a few numbers, a few facts that we've been working on. We have about, first half of this year, about 73 million visitors managed by our airports in the UAE. We're growing year on year on the amount of occupancy. We have over 1,200 hotels that have hosted millions of people coming in, about 53 million hotel occupancy. 80% of the hotel occupancy the first half, which is the highest in the world. And we're moving forward as well to see the kind of the hiring. We've seen new talent coming in. We've seen the food and beverage industry, which is to the hospitality as well, has been increased. We've seen the Michelin stars, starting coming out. We've seen the Michelin star event happening in Abu Dhabi just last couple of weeks ago as well. Hoping that maybe more new restaurants going to be on the kind of graded and guide of the Michelin star coming forward. So there's a lot of things that's happening, and I think this is something which is working.
How far can you go? If you're right that growth over the last couple of years has been pretty stunning, how much further can it go? What percentage of your UAE GDP do you think tourism can get to?
Well, my target is 16%.
16?
My target is 16. By 2031, we should hit 16% GDP.
And in terms of supply and demand, on the supply side, how much further are you going to build your hotel, your rooms potential in UAE?
Well, we need more. We are targeting over 450 billion dirhams worth of investments in the hotel industry itself to come in the next 7 years. We are looking to really increase the amount of keys, increase the amount of hospitality hotels, offers, products coming in. We're looking at it from a different now, not just a tourism on a higher perspective, as well. We're looking at medical tourism, wellness tourism. These are kind of the two topics now that's really going on with the tourism aspects, but they are segregated. They talk about medical tourism on a separate note, and they talk about wellness tourism on a separate note. To me, wellness and medical has to be combined. Now, when you look at it, why I look at it that way, because the most important is the nights per stay a tourist will stay in the country. Today, we are about 3.5, 3.6 nights per stay. We want to increase that to 7 nights, 8 nights. That's a dream for any Minister of Tourism globally, by the way, is to increase the numbers of nights per stay.
As a federal minister, do you worry about the dominance of Dubai?
Well, actually, what I worry is not that. I worry is that how can I introduce new type of products into the kind of into the UAE in different Emirates, given that I have the Emirate of Fujairah, Ras Al Khaimah, Al Gawain, Ajman, Dubai, Sharjah, Abu Dhabi, and everyone has a different competitive advantage to offer. So from Fujairah, you can have breakfast in Fujairah, lunch in Dubai, and dinner in Abu Dhabi if you want. And you can experience the tourism product from each and everyone.
Your dietitian might have a problem with that, but it sounds fun. That's the internal UAE picture, but you've got a looming challenge, at least perhaps it's right to call it a challenge, from the massive growth of the tourism sector in Saudi Arabia. Do you, as the Minister for Tourism in UAE, sort of somewhat worry about that and the impact it could have on you?
Well, actually, it's not. When we look at it is, when you look at the amount of tourists in it, let's take it from a factual approach. UAE today, 60% of its tourism is international, 40% of its tourism is domestic. When you look at the UAE domestic tourism, when I mean domestic, let's define domestic. Domestic is the people who are UAE nationals and they live here. We launched the coolest winter in the world campaign for the 4 years, consecutive years. We're going to launch another one this year as well. And we have different programs. We found out there are different products in the UAE for domestic tourism. And why domestic tourism is much important? Because they pay and they're high spenders, not just in the UAE. Do you know that the domestic tourism in the UAE is sought after from the West and East? I've been in discussions saying how can we increase UAE nationals or domestic people living in the UAE to come and do tourism in Spain and Italy and France because
London.
you guys, yes.
Even London.
Even London, because we love to eat, we love to spend, and this is the kind of sought after them. So in the strategy room, back in the ministry, we look at, all right, how can I use my domestic tourism, those who are living in the UAE, to really showcase them? Have you tried the Dibba oysters?
No, I have not. Are you inviting me?
I would like to invite you in Fujairah. Actually, what happened is they brought oysters from France.
Yeah.
And they started an experiment in Fujairah, in the ocean. And the oysters takes about 2 years for them to mature to the right sizes. And they have kind of size 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and kind of coding to them. They actually reached the size of a high standard French oysters within 8 months rather than 2 years. Today, we not just as well offer food, but we offer as well experiences where you can go and eat fresh oysters. And this is something which is, today the Dibba oysters is dominating kind of 30-40% of the trade in oysters globally because of such as invention. And these are the things of people, I didn't know about it. I didn't know that we actually grow French oysters. This is the domestic tourism aspect that comes in. And how do we really play a big role in the aspects of benching down on, doubling down on your domestic tourism? I want to reach 50%. Why? The reason is, after COVID-19, we were actually 70% international tourism, 30% domestic. And when COVID hit, globally, that 70% went out.
Yeah.
We had to go back and say, how can we benefit from our domestic tourism?
You had to adapt.
And we have to adapt. And I wanted to stay. So the point is, I'm not looking elsewhere. I'm not looking around the corners. I'm looking into my country. What are the products that's been offered? What are the domestic tourism factual aspects? How can I push my domestic tourism to reach a 50-50 consensus between domestic and international and have this kind of aspect? Because domestic tourism will spend time. We have long with the school holidays. In the winter, we have a month. In the spring, we have about 2 to 3 weeks. In the summer as well. But there's a lot of spending happening. We have increased the weekdays, by the way, from a 5 days working week in government to 4.5. And the reason is for economic perspective, for tourism, for economy, to actually have more people spending.
Thing is, if you do get to your goal of 16% of GDP coming from tourism, there's going to be even more pressure, more onus on that sector to deliver when it comes to national commitments to the climate change agenda, to getting to net zero by 2050, as so many countries have signed up to. As a minister in the government, are you determined to have more rigorous auditing of the tourism sector to ensure that it is meeting the highest standards when it comes to emissions and all of the ESG standards?
Actually, the industry wants it before me. The industry have seen the data of tourism when they are more searching for sustainable resorts. So, first of all, on the ministry level, we're working with the UN Tourism on the measuring sustainable tourism, the MSTs. We're going to adapt the MST measurements now in the UAE, working with the UN Tourism. And the aspect, how do you measure sustainability in the hospitality and the tourism aspect? And that's something which is very important. We have created just 6 months ago the Hospitality Advisory Group from the hospitality big players in the UAE, and we're working with them. And the first thing, tell you what, on the agenda was sustainability. How do we implement sustainability? This was their kind of discussions. and we want to implement it. We're ready to implement it. We're already implementing. And I think that's something, how do we take it to a level that, say, UAE is on the forefront of sustainability
and
tourism?
I'm thinking not just of measuring emissions, for example, but also of how you engage with local communities. Ensure that you don't just rely on imported labor, but more and more of your tourism sector workers are trained, skilled people from your own country.
Yes, exactly. So that's something which is now working on a couple of things. First of all, tourism in the UAE hires about 800,000 employees. It's about 11 to 12% of the workforce in the UAE. It's heavily populated in talent, and the majority as well. How do we look at hiring UAE nationals in the tourism aspect? We've been working with a program called NAFIS. We've been working as well with the tourism sector to start hiring, and with the government has an incentive program, working with the hospitality to provide a payment to the salaries, plus as well to the pension scheme that the UAE nationals coming in, but that's not the case. Now, it's a global challenge. UN Tourism as well looks at it from an aspect that globally, not a lot of people are attracted to the hospitality and tourism industry overall, not just in the UAE. So we're working with the UN Tourism on the education toolkit and how do we implement it in the UAE from a curriculum perspective to get people more interested to join the tourism industry, to be part of the tourism industry. We're working on the first draft of that toolkit, and we're going to start implementing and looking at how we're implementing it in the UAE. We want more and more to come in, and especially the UAE nationals as well be part of the industry.
Now, before we end, I think it would be remiss of me not to reflect on the fact that, you know, in the wider Mideast region, there is war right now, there is uncertainty, there is tension, there is grave concern about the geopolitics of the region. There's nothing you can do about that, but as a Minister of Economy and Tourism, do you worry about the knock-on impacts it could have on the sectors that you are so concerned with?
Not at all. UAE always been in a place for 50 years, 100 years, in a region which always has conflict. But the UAE leadership has this kind of openness, safety and security is one of the highest things that we always put our standards onto. That's what we offer, and I think that's something which we go on about, and people knows about that. You know, we are in the eye of the storm. You know, you come here, you can keep your car running, don't do that, and go into the supermarket. You know, I'm not encouraging people to do that. It's very safe. But this is something which we are very happy and proud of, that the UAE has a very high utmost security and safety protocol in the UAE. And this is something which we, proud of. And the tourism, we see it increasing year on year. We've seen numbers going up, and I think that's more as well for the tourism industry to look at it from F&B, from hospitality, from sustainability aspects. There's a lot of products going to come in the next 7 years to the 2031.
Well, Your Excellency, you're a powerful advocate for the tourism sector in UAE. I thank you very much for joining us. I know you've got a busy schedule, so I'm going to have to let you go, but thank you very much for joining me on this stage. Thanks a lot. It's great to see you again. Thank you.